It's a move that has stunned political observers and MAGA Republicans alike. Speaker Mike Johnson's grip on power is weakening, and some of the most influential figures in American politics, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, are now turning on him. Just weeks ago, Johnson was hailed as the man who could unite the fractured Republican Party, but today his leadership is facing an existential crisis. What happened to MAGA Mike? How did the rising star of the GOP find himself in a political freefall? Johnson, whose name was once synonymous with conservative triumph, is now under fire from within his own ranks. He has faced severe backlash for his handling of the government shutdown negotiations and for a controversial bipartisan deal that many Republicans, including the party's most prominent figures, view as a betrayal of their principles. But the cracks in his leadership go even deeper. With figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump voicing their discontent, Mike Johnson's ability to navigate the complexities of Washington and hold on to his position is now being called into question. What's at stake in this political showdown? And can Mike Johnson survive the storm brewing in his own party? MAGA Mike's rise to power, a promising start. Mike Johnson's election as Speaker of the House in October 2023 was hailed as a significant win for MAGA Republicans. Positioned as a staunch ally of former President Donald Trump, Johnson's rise was seen as a triumph for the conservative movement. His reputation as a hardline, no-compromise conservative made him the darling of the party's right wing. Many saw his appointment as a return to form for the GOP, promising a push to enact aggressive conservative policies that would secure the party's agenda and wrestle power back from the Democrats. But it quickly became clear that Johnson's tenure would not be as smooth as expected. While he initially presented himself as a unifier, attempting to bridge the divides within the GOP, the cracks started to appear when he had to make real decisions. Like any political leader, Johnson was confronted with a hard truth that, in order to pass significant legislation, he would need to work across the aisle. And that's where the trouble began. The controversial continuing resolution. In late 2023, Speaker Mike Johnson introduced a continuing resolution, CR, aimed at averting a government shutdown. However, this proposal was immediately met with resistance from the far-right faction of his party. While the bill included some provisions that conservatives could support, it also contained bipartisan elements that drew ire from MAGA hardliners. Johnson's decision to strike a deal with the Democrats, including President Biden's administration, enraged key figures in the party, notably Elon Musk and Trump allies, who saw this as a sign of weakness and betrayal. Elon Musk, the tech billionaire and de facto influencer in American politics, did not mince words. In a series of posts, Musk declared the bipartisan resolution criminal and argued that anyone who voted for it should be voted out of office. He even posted a provocative image of himself wielding a samurai sword, urging the GOP to kill the bill. This was a clear signal to MAGA Republicans. Johnson's deal was a step too far. Musk's influence, particularly with Trump loyalists, made it clear that Johnson's political future was at risk. Trump's intervention and the debt ceiling drama. As if things weren't complicated enough, Trump himself weighed in on the situation. The former president, who has maintained significant sway over the GOP, reportedly urged Johnson to abandon his position on the debt ceiling. Trump suggested that the country needed to remove any limitations on borrowing, including the debt ceiling, in order to pave the way for massive tax cuts for the wealthy and military spending that would benefit his MAGA base. Johnson, ever eager to please the former president, was caught in a dilemma. Could he hold firm to his conservative principles and risk Trump's wrath, or would he capitulate to Trump's demands, potentially alienating the more fiscally conservative wing of his party? In a dramatic move, Johnson introduced a new CR that would have eliminated restrictions on borrowing and raised the debt ceiling. This new proposal would add trillions to the national debt and included a provision that removed restrictions on business dealings with China, which could benefit high-profile business figures like Elon Musk. But in a shocking twist, the bill also cut crucial funding for pediatric cancer research, a cut that was particularly egregious given the timing just before the Christmas holidays. The backlash from both Democrats and Republicans was swift and unforgiving. The growing discontent within the GOP. As Johnson's position became increasingly untenable, more and more Republicans began to speak out. Senators like Mike Lee and Josh Hawley, both prominent figures in the MAGA movement, voiced their discontent with Johnson's leadership. Lee, a staunch conservative from Utah, expressed concern over Johnson's inability to control the process and deliver on the promises made to voters. Hawley, known for his fiery rhetoric and staunch defense of Trump's agenda, openly questioned whether Johnson was fit to lead the House of Representatives, criticizing the CR for exacerbating the nation's debt problem. Moreover, a growing number of Republicans were turning against Johnson not just for his compromises with the Democrats, but for his perceived weakness in the face of pressure from Trump and Musk. For the MAGA base, this was a bridge too far. They had elected Johnson to fight for their values and deliver a conservative agenda, but instead, they saw a leader who was caving to the demands of billionaires and ignoring the party's fiscal conservatives. A civil war within the GOP. The situation became even more chaotic as Musk and Trump continued to exert their influence. The billionaire tech mogul's social media posts and public statements put Johnson's leadership in a precarious position. On the other side, Trump's calls for a more aggressive stance on fiscal policy and his demands for tax cuts further complicated the situation. The Republican Party was now facing a civil war of sorts, with Musk and Trump at opposite ends of the ideological spectrum, pulling Johnson in different directions. It became clear that Johnson was unable to unite the party, as his efforts to navigate between these factions seemed increasingly ineffective. While some Republicans were backing him, arguing that compromises were necessary to get things done, others were ready to move on from him. Johnson's failure to deliver a clean bill that could pass both the House and the Senate left him in a vulnerable position, and many of his supporters began to question whether he was the right man for the job. The MAGA exodus. Johnson's political decline. The final blow to Johnson's leadership came when 38 Republicans defected and voted with the Democrats to defeat his proposed CR. This was a humiliating defeat for the Speaker and further solidified the growing perception that he had lost control of the GOP caucus. Even within his own party, the calls for his resignation grew louder. Figures like Chip Roy and other MAGA Republicans were vocal in their criticism, accusing Johnson of mismanaging the negotiations and failing to deliver a conservative victory. Johnson's assurances that everything was under control rang hollow. In an interview, he expressed confidence that he would remain Speaker, but his words seemed increasingly out of touch with reality. His allies were jumping ship, and his detractors were growing louder. With every failed attempt to push his agenda through Congress, Johnson's authority eroded further. He was no longer the unifying figure he had once promised to be. Instead, he had become the target of attacks from both the left and the right, trapped between the competing demands of Musk, Trump, and the rest of the GOP. The impending showdown. Can MAGA Mike survive? As the new year approaches, the question remains, can MAGA Mike Johnson hold on to his position as Speaker of the House, or is his time at the helm coming to an end? With the GOP fractured and his leadership in crisis, the path ahead looks increasingly uncertain for Johnson. His attempts to appease both the far-right and more moderate factions of the party have failed spectacularly, and now, with Musk and Trump turning on him, his political future hangs in the balance. For now, MAGA Republicans are looking for a new leader, someone who can deliver the results they want without caving to the pressure of the establishment. Whether that new leader will be someone like Elon Musk or another figure from the MAGA movement remains to be seen, but what is clear is that Johnson's time as Speaker is rapidly running out. As the GOP prepares for a new round of leadership battles, one thing is certain: the days of MAGA Mike Johnson as Speaker may be numbered. Mike Johnson's political career is now in jeopardy. Once seen as a rising star within the Republican Party, his tenure as Speaker of the House has been marked by a series of missteps and compromises that have alienated both the MAGA base and the more traditional conservative wing of the GOP. With figures like Elon Musk and Donald Trump turning on him, Johnson's leadership is now under siege from all sides. His inability to unite the party and deliver on key promises has left him vulnerable to a challenge, and the growing calls for his resignation suggest that his days as Speaker are numbered. The ongoing civil war within the Republican Party will undoubtedly have far-reaching consequences. As the GOP grapples with its identity and the influence of outside forces like Musk and Trump, the future of Mike Johnson and the direction of the party remain uncertain. One thing is clear. The political drama surrounding MAGA Mike Johnson is far from over, and the stakes for the GOP have never been higher. Will Johnson survive the storm, or will the MAGA movement move on to someone else? Only time will tell.